Welcome back to Mendel Center Connections. I'm Grace Kelmer, and today I'm talking with Kristin Wier from the Logan Autism Learning Center. And we have known each other for about a year now. We actually worked together on a project this February. It was actually the last event that we had before the Mendel Center closed on March 13th. We hosted a really cool event a few days before, specifically in collaboration with Logan to benefit their families and give them something to do. So to back up a step, let's first talk a little bit about what the Logan Center is and the services that you provide to our community.
Sure. Logan as an organization actually is celebrating 70 years, I think in a couple weeks. So it was established in 1950 by a group of parents, and originally it was developed into a school, ironically, and it was on Logan Street in South Bend, Indiana, because back in 1950 IDEA didn't exist. So if you had a child with a different ability or a diagnosis, they actually weren't able to go to school. And so they started Logan on Logan Street, and it was a school for, various children who needed that support and education. And then as IDEA and different things became available, it transformed into supportive services and created residential programs, and so many community outreach, day services, art services. They even developed Logan Industries, which is a supported workshop for individuals, and they are able to work and make money. And then they have staff available just in case they need help. So it's a safe environment. And then in 2004, Logan realized that autism really needed support in Mishawaka, in Michiana, and there weren't any providers. I was invited down to do parent training twice in 2004 and 2005, and it was just a resource center, so it was a beautiful library, and Dan Ryan was working at the time, and he was giving families information, resources, referrals, and they realized there weren't any providers to refer families to in the area. I was living in Detroit at the time, and when I kept coming down for the training, I met more and more families, and they would joke, well, will you move in with us? Will you help us with our son? And I just felt such a strong connection. And I grew up here in Southwest Michigan. I was born and raised in St. Joe. And so I definitely felt that connection and wanted to support. So in 2006, my husband and I moved back, and we helped Logan start services. So I was their first service provider, and I served 157 families alone that first year.
Oh my gosh.
Such a need. And then I advocated that I alone could not do this. So Logan agreed, and we were able to hire more BCBAs. This was still at a time where there was no insurance coverage for families. There was no real way for families to get services in unless they had the ability to pay privately, which would be quite a lot. So Logan did a lot of fundraisers. We have an annual garden party that funds autism services and scholarships. And throughout the years, we were able to grow. And then we opened pilot center in 2010 in South Bend. And then the wait list was so exorbitant that we bought a building in Granger, Indiana in 2011. And I, living here in Southwest Michigan, was like, no, I really want something here. So in 2012, our CEO at the time agreed that he would let me try it out. I don't think he knew what we would grow into. And so I created a partnership with the First Congregational Church in St. Joe. They let us rent the education wing, and we opened in early 2013 for our first center here in Southwest Michigan. And within 6 months, we were serving 27 individuals. Their goal for me was 5. They were like, if you could, help 5, that would be so great. And I'm like, it would be great, but I also know there's a lot more than 5, individuals who need support right now on the autism spectrum. So we just kind of blew up, to be honest. Word of mouth. We really didn't do advertising or marketing. It's just, families needed support, and we just kept growing, to be honest. At first, I think we were thinking ages 2 to 14 was probably the age range we would start with, but then I kept meeting more families, and my staff will tell you I don't like to say no. If I meet someone and I know we can help them, I'm like, we have to figure it out. So we were able to partner with Riverwood, and we were able to partner with others so that all individuals, regardless of ability to pay, could start gaining some services. And then we were really lucky to partner with United Way here locally. And currently, they are still giving us money every year for scholarships. So the money is only for scholarships for families in Southwest Michigan. And it helps the families if they have exorbitant co-pays, if their insurance policy doesn't cover autism services, that they still have access to services and support. So it's really great. We're very fortunate to have that. But we now serve in Southwest Michigan, so we grew from that 5. We're up to 168. We have 100 employees.
What, 6 years? Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
Wow.
So we have 100 employees here in Southwest Michigan alone. Logan, over the last 70 years, has grown to, I think, 556 employees. So it started out as this cute little school on Logan Street and grew to an enormous organization, which is great, serving a lot of people with a lot of needs. So right now here in Southwest Michigan, we have our Autism Learning Center in Benton Harbor, Michigan. As we've talked before, we did buy a school, and that is confusing. I wanted our younger clients to feel like they knew what it would feel like to transition around a school building. We had rented an education wing in a church, and it worked really well when we were transitioning those little ones from kind of a preschool environment to kindergarten and first grade. But I knew we needed the like sensory stimuli of a bigger building. We made sure we added lockers to the building. We have cubbies in like a younger wing. We have individual bathrooms, but then also group, more of a traditional bathroom with stalls. And all of these things are learning needs for the individuals we serve. Everything's initially kind of a big deal for them. It's sometimes overwhelming or scary. So we wanted to make sure we had an environment that truly had the greatest opportunity for success, going back to their home district. So we are considered medical. We bill insurance, we bill Medicaid, we have private pay, as I mentioned, in scholarships, but we do applied behavior analysis therapy. We also have speech pathologist on staff, occupational therapist on staff, social workers and counselors on staff, and then we have registered behavior technicians on staff. And all of us work together to create treatment plans for the individuals who come to us. And right now, I should state the age range is now 2 to 69 years old. And we're not just working in the building that we purchased. We also are in the community and in our clients' homes. And then some of our adults do live in group homes. So we do go to their group homes and support them there as well. And really, we just want to make sure that anybody that comes to us, that we can work with their parents, their guardians, their family members to give them the greatest opportunity for independence. So it doesn't matter to us as providers if you're 2 or 62. If you want to learn something new, whether it's communication, greater independence in a daily living skill, how to eat new foods, how to use the bathroom for the first time independently. We get referrals for people who it really doesn't matter what age they are. Sometimes they had disconnects and they didn't learn certain skills that we might traditionally learn. So our program is centered on helping them develop all life skills, adaptive behavior skills, pre-academic skills if they're younger and, getting ready for school. So we're really just trying to create that success and independence for the clients we serve and their families. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and having visited your building in Benton Harbor a number of times, it's such a neat space, and it does still feel very much like a school.
Right.
You've retained everything that makes it feel like a school.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear that you just added the extra resources, the extra kind of
Right.
prompts on the walls and around the building, and of course the classrooms are
Yeah.
set up in a way that work for that age group and whatever it is that they're working on. And just the number of staff there, like you mentioned, like 100 staff for 150 some kids. I mean, the ratio is amazing. You walk in and you just see, every client has someone working with them.
Right.
Yeah, and then I guess my assumption is that the ones who are working on that independence, maybe they have more time where they are
Yes.
working independently.
Absolutely. So all of our clients receive one-to-one intervention But as you stated, the ones when we're transitioning to school, we do try to fade that out. So in the summertime, and we were able to do it this summer too, which was great in the midst of a pandemic. But we had small group learning opportunities so that the individuals could experience what it would be like in school. We didn't want them to go in scared. We didn't want them to be scared of masks. We wanted them to still have that ability to sit for extended periods of time, line up safely with social distancing, having that 6 feet apart, playing safely on a playground with friends, all those things that any child needs to learn. We wanted to make sure we had that practice this summer. And I should mention, we were really fortunate. We were considered an essential service. So when COVID did, hit our community essentially Friday the 13th in March, and everyone wasn't sure what to do, we were talking with local medical professionals, education systems, just to see what their plans were in place. And we wanted to make sure we were doing what was right because some of the individuals we serve, an abrupt stop would have been detrimental to them. So we stayed in person until March 25th, and then we took a pause from face-to-face and converted to telemedicine. And so we had videos, and for families that didn't have access, we had iPads we were able to loan to them and Wi-Fi devices so that they were able to meet with us through, we used WebEx versus like a Zoom meeting. And then during that time while we were doing that, we worked very diligently on safety plans, which were, all new for everybody. This whole thing was new for the whole world. So we created a safety plan, and then when we felt it was the most appropriate thing we could do to reintegrate our clients to face, we were able to start that, and we did a slow fade in starting April 20th here in Michigan. So we've been open for face-to-face since April 20th, but we did a fade in. We slowly reintegrated staff into the building and clients, and it's been wonderful. I feel very fortunate. We've been safe and clean and healthy, and we've been able to maintain services. And then with the school year starting, as you mentioned, our goal was for a lot of our kids to go to school for the first time or to return, and they've all been able to do that. I think this week for some of them was their first full week of school because every district did something different. So it's, in the midst of a lot of challenge, I feel like we've been able to have a lot of success too. It's just been a hard road. We've all become experts in cleaning supplies and medical cleaning supplies, and I mean, so much that we never knew we would become experts in. But I think we've done it to make sure our clients are safe, our families are safe, and our staff are safe. So it's been a crazy road, but I'm glad we're still in it and still serving the community.
Yeah, that's so good to hear. I'm so thrilled that you were able to go back in person so soon and to have a perfect track record for all these
Yeah,
months.
yeah.
That's really a testament to what you're doing over there.
I
That's
think I need to knock on wood, but I mean, I'm glad though that, we've been able to do this. We had a lot of families that were really nervous. I think everyone at first, the whole community was scared, like, what does this mean for us? And everyone just wanted to kind of be at home and be safe with their loved ones. And then we noticed like around week 2, 3, through telemedicine, we were able to see that everyone was struggling and we wanted to see, okay, you do need more support and you do need some of that face-to-face engagement. So we wanted to make that possible as soon as we could, but there was that fear factor. We just wanted to make sure everyone was okay. And thankfully, our crazy hand washing routines and cleaning and sanitizing has worked, and wearing masks and doing all of those things has helped immensely.
cool. So you are, I think your official title is you're the clinical director of this
Yes.
location, and you talked a
Yep.
little bit about how you were instrumental in getting this center off the ground and even
Yep.
growing Logan outside of its initial location in South
Yep.
Bend. So can you talk a little bit about how you got into this work in the first place and what took you
Sure.
to Detroit and back, and yeah,
Yeah. It's probably pretty unique. So I didn't have a lot of experience with autism in my early years of life. I didn't have any family members that I knew of at the time, or In school, I don't feel like I knew that there would have been any students maybe on the autism spectrum with me. And then in college, I was studying psychology, and part of to graduate, I went to Aquinas College, you had to do a service learning trip. And I was running in college, so it was hard to plan with running, like when I could take a break and travel somewhere and do this trip. So I chose a trip in a fall time frame, like over our fall break, to a L'Arche community in Canada at the time. And L'Arche is a nonprofit organization that has residential and community services for people with various disabilities. And you live with them. So even if you have no experience as students, the placement, they literally dropped us off at a house, like, and they were in neighborhoods, but you walk in and you know nobody, and even though it was Canada, it was still a foreign land. And I they're like, hi, this is Kristin, and you're going to be living here with Heather and Monica and Courtney, and then these are their support givers. And it was my first exposure to autism. It was very like, here you go, and I loved it. I was very intrigued. I hadn't studied it. I hadn't studied early intervention or what was possible. And I think what really kind of got to me during that experience was one of the residents. She hadn't talked at all, like not a single word to anybody in 3 days. And then the third dinner we had together, she started singing "You Are My Sunshine" in perfect, like perfect everything, articulate, residents, like it was beautiful. And I looked at everyone, and a lot of the workers were actually from other countries too, and two of the girls were from Poland. And I was like, wait, she can talk? And they're like, when she wants to. And I was like, and she sings and it's beautiful? And they're like, yeah. And I just looked at her and I'm like, Heather, you are awesome. And she still wouldn't give me eye contact, but I knew she was listening to me. And so throughout the week, I could see that she was engaging with me more in her own way. And I just was so like taken back by the experience. So when I returned to college, I really started researching like, okay, autism, really, what is it? Because I had an experience with women that were 22 to 26 in this residential home. And at that time, sadly, in the 90s, a lot of those individuals had been institutionalized. The doctors had been, parents had told the doctors, to give your child the best form of life, they need to live in like a residential community. Over time, they were able to expand it into L'Arche, which was a very loving environment. The parents would come and visit their loved ones and everything, but they needed 24-hour supports. And when I started researching it, I learned about applied behavior analysis therapy, and that was considered new in the 90s. And there were very few universities for graduate studies that were looking at autism intervention. And Western Michigan University was. And so I emailed one of the professors and I explained what I experienced, and that I believed that these people, if they had had it early interventions as children, that they not only would have been singing as 26-year-olds, but they probably would have had a conversation with me. And I felt just very inspired, like I wanted to learn more. So that was kind of my initial journey and interest. And then at Western, they had very hands-on practicum. They had schools that had been developed that had graduate students and undergraduate students working hands-on with young children on the spectrum. And you could see, even throughout a semester, the amount of growth and skill development that these kids were able to gain. It was remarkable. And so I'm like, this is what I want to do. And so at the time when I graduated, there was no insurance coverage for autism at all in the country. And there were even times where families, if they told someone they thought their child was on the spectrum, that insurance wouldn't cover even any medical care for the child. Like, that's a lifelong disability, and and I was like, that is not okay. And so I think at the time when I graduated in early 2000, I found the only autism center in the state. It was right before Beaumont Hospital and some others were developing some parent training programs, but it was the Early Intervention Center. And it was a nonprofit started by a father. His daughter was on the spectrum, and they had been flying in professionals from California and paying them to help their daughter, and he didn't want that for all families. it was in Birmingham, Michigan, outside of Detroit. So my first job out of grad school was actually the director of that center, and very similar. I think when I started, we had 8 little kids, and then when I transitioned to join Logan, we had 28, and it was amazing, and it was similar. We had the small education wing of a church. It was a nice, great environment, but at the time when families were paying privately, and that really educated me on how much families were devoted to helping their children. Because when there was no insurance coverage and you needed 35 hours a week of direct intervention, families were fundraising, and they were, this is pre-GoFundMe, so families were having bowling events and family dinners and all these things just to pay for services for their children. And that was just remarkable for me to see the dedication and devotion of families for their loved ones. And so when I came to Logan, and it was just a great long-term nonprofit organization that supported people with various abilities. They had this garden party, and that was kind of how they were able to start scholarshiping families, so that regardless of pay, we had families that were paying $1 an hour because that's what they could afford, or $2 an hour. They just really wanted these services here, and I was so grateful because my family here, I'd come home on the holidays, and they would tell me about people they were meeting who needed help, and I was just so glad we could develop all of this for our community. It's amazing. Growth has been remarkable, and I feel like we're just going to keep working to make sure the clients we serve are supported throughout their life. So we started with the early intervention goal, but then it quickly developed into we need more for adolescents and we need more for adults. So I'm really hoping over the next couple years we can continue to make sure we have the supports that truly benefit our families and clients.
That's so exciting. I'm glad that the people offering the services plus the introduction of insurance coverage for these services, I'm glad that's come together.
Oh, me too.
That's fantastic. I didn't realize that it had been so dire so recently.
Yeah, and the last 20 years has been remarkable for everybody, especially in the state of Michigan. I think the insurance mandate for autism passed only in 2013. Ironically, when we were already going to be opening the center, we were opening regardless of that. That just was an added perk for families. And then in 2014, Medicaid, really allowed all families to have as much support as they needed, which was great.
Oh, that's great. Well, speaking of support, what can people do to help Logan as an organization?
Yeah.
I don't know if the garden party is still happening this year, or if you're doing it in a virtual format, or if there are other ways
Yeah.
people can support you.
We were supposed to have one, of course, just like everything. It usually happens in July every year, and they did put a pause on it, unfortunately. But I am here locally. We typically have an annual bowling fundraiser in April for autism awareness. Of course, that was in the midst of everything, so that was also derailed this year. But I would say if we have events or give back dinners or things, once it becomes safe for that, I would love for any community members to participate because I think it's a great way to meet others and meet various members who may present differently, maybe are on the autism spectrum, have loved ones on the autism spectrum, and just even learning more, is a great thing. Obviously, donations are welcome. We are a nonprofit organization, and even though we are able to bill insurance, not every family's policies cover therapy still. And honestly, we really, as you saw in our building, I want it to be a place that provides dignity and respect for the people we serve. So we always have new, cool sensory items and fun, stimulating learning materials. We try to stay as up to date on any new assessment kit, any new products that could help support our families. And then we also oftentimes give families resources that they're able to take home and use. And so we do still highly depend on donations, and that really helps directly support our clients in a I think a very wonderful way. So if they're interested in donations, they can write checks and mail them to our center in Benton Harbor. I think the Logan Center website sometimes even has a portal for donations. And that's at www.logancenter.org. And if families have more interest in volunteering or different things like that, I think, as we learn more throughout this pandemic and see different safety and different strategies, hopefully we can reintegrate more volunteers into the building.
Great.
But they could call our center. Do you want me to share the number, or will you do that later?
We can link to it with the video.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy that I've been able to learn more about Logan over the past year, and I look forward to continuing to do sensory friendly programming and other collaborations with you over the coming years. It's so amazing what you've done with this program in Southwest Michigan and Michiana over the last few years, and it seems like there's still so much potential for growth. I'm excited to see what happens with
Yeah.
it.
Me too.
Work you do, you and all of your staff. I know quite a few of you over there, Chrissy and Pam and others. So yeah, it's been a joy to get to know you, and best of luck with everything moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting us.
Of course, of course.
All right.
All right.